It looks like President Trump is trying his hardest to get impeached again and prosecuted after he called up the Georgia Secretary of State and pressured him to illegally overturn election results. And lots of Republicans are fully on board. For more on this, it's time for a closer look. Well, it's 2021, and as predicted by the pundits, things have finally calmed down. And the only question left facing America is, what are the late-night hosts going to talk about now that Donald Trump... What's that? Who did he call? The Georgia Secretary of State? What for? Begging for votes? But says who? It was recorded. But how could someone record a call? Oh, right, because it's 2021, and anyone can record a phone call, and if you're a notorious liar who misrepresents phone calls all the time, you should probably assume you're being recorded from here on out. Yeah, but how long a phone call? An hour? But still, that means Trump talked for, what, 30 minutes? 59 minutes? Okay, but so what? It's just Trump being Trump, right?
A dozen Republican senators and at least 140 House Republicans plan to dispute next week's Electoral College certification. The president's attorney, Rudy Giuliani, called the Department of Homeland Security to see if it was possible for them to seize voting machines.
If there's evidence of fraud and it's substantial and significant enough to affect the results in a particular state, then those election results would have to be set aside.
January 20th cannot be changed. That's constitutional. But this whole certification thing, the dates
well, it can be changed, anyway, actually.
Peter
we can go past that date. We can go past that date.
Some of the president's allies, including his former national security advisor Michael Flynn, have suggested declaring martial law to force new elections.
Bombshell recording of a phone call revealing President Trump pressuring an election official in Georgia to overturn his defeat to Joe Biden.
I just want to find 11,780 votes.
This is something far worse than occurred in Watergate.
Damn it, I really thought this year was going to be different. I'd already started writing down jokes about budget reconciliation and how Joe Biden's Secretary of State looks like, I don't know, a guy waiting in line at the store. Hope they had the mints you like, buddy. What? I don't know. The point is, virtually the entirety of the Republican Party has started off the year by making it clear, in case it wasn't clear before, that they're actively trying to destroy democracy. Also, this story was yet another reminder that while we do a big countdown and watch a ball drop, the beginning of New Year's tend to be a lot like the year that just ended. It's like a break between rounds in a boxing match. Sure, we got to sit on a stool for a few minutes and sip water, but now it's right back to concussion central. And predictably, 2021 is picking up right where 2020 left off, with Trump and the Republican Party callously refusing to do anything about the raging pandemic that's killed 350,000 Americans or the botched vaccine rollout, choosing instead to focus on their unhinged attempts to light our democracy on fire. And we have to be clear-eyed about this. It's not just Trump. They're all in on it, even if they're conspicuously silent. They got their statement afterward that says, "I condemn this unauthorized withdrawal of funds from the savings and loan. I was just there to restore faith in our financial institutions." Now, we're going to go through the entire phone call in a minute because it's, like insane and likely criminal. But first, it's important to be straightforward about what we're witnessing here from the Republican Party. This isn't just a matter of political ambition eclipsing a shared commitment to democratic principles, although there's certainly that at play here, too. It's not that Republicans like Josh Hawley or Ted Cruz don't care about the consequences of their actions. They do. They want to dismantle democracy. It's an active goal of the Republican Party and has been for years. The same party that spent decades trying to stop people from voting through voter ID laws and poll closures and requiring felons to pay court fines and trying to toss out legal mail ballots is now trying to erase the votes of their opponents, not because they think their votes are illegitimate, but because they think their opponents are illegitimate. We need to be clear about that. If your coworker at Chipotle spends years asking if he can wrap you in a tortilla and cover you in salsa and sprinkle cheese in your head, you can't be surprised if you turn on the news one day and see him arrested for eating a guy. Not Cannibal Gary! And the Republicans who voted to acquit Trump when he was impeached, basically the same thing, are complicit too. Remember when Maine Senator Susan Collins voted to let Trump off the hook for trying to extort Ukraine to help him cheat in the election, then said this?
"I believe that the president has learned from this case."
What do you believe the president has learned?
The president has been impeached. That's a pretty big lesson.
That should go down as the fourth worst prediction in history after people are going to love this Cats movie. I think the Zune is going to take off, and the gift of the season is this Cats-themed Zune. Of course, that prediction was absurd on its face at the time, but it's especially pathetic in hindsight. Trump isn't capable of learning lessons because he doesn't inhabit our shared reality. That's clear on the tape. Trump thinks he's Al Pacino in Glengarry Glen Ross, but listening to the audio of his phone call, it's clear he's Jack Lemmon in a phone booth begging for the good leads. You have to listen to the entire hour-long thing. I mean, you don't have to. It's pretty awful, but you could if you had like an hour to kill. The President of the United States sounded like an inveterate gambler begging his bookie to float him for one more race. "I just need $11,000 bucks. I got a great horse. He's a sure thing. His name is the Comet." And there's one moment in particular that really stayed with me, that I can't get out of my head. When the president-elect, was speaking with the Georgia Secretary of State's general counsel, whose name is Ryan Germany, and then the president said this very bizarre thing.
I heard your lawyer is very difficult, actually, but I'm sure you're a good lawyer. You have a nice last name.
I feel as though I have a good read on what the president is doing most of the time because it's safe to bet on the most morally corrupt of the options, yet I truly don't know what he was doing. When he told this man, you have a nice last name, was he snidely implying that this lawyer was un-American because his last name was Germany? Was he threatening? His last name mafia style. Nice last name. Would be a shame if anything happened to it. You'd just be Ryan. Gonna be tough to get mail with no last name, Ryan. Was it white supremacist flirting? Germany, that's a limit. In an effort to sweet-talk him in hopes that the lawyer for the Georgia Secretary of State's office would say, well, my goodness, Mr. Trump, you have set my heart aflutter with your silver tongue. Now, exactly how many votes did you say you would be needing? Trump's combination of drowsiness and frantic energy are on display in full force throughout the call. It's like he just had a meal of turkey stuffed with Red Bull. At one point, Trump told Raffensperger that he was damaging the Republican Party for the upcoming runoff election.
Because of what you've done to the president, a lot of people aren't going out to vote. And a lot of Republicans are going to vote negative.
Vote negative? Well, at least Trump's subconscious is paying attention to COVID. Vote negative, test positive, Trump 2024. It's tempting to think Trump is unique because he's an unhinged buffoon who cajoles and threatens and admits his criminality out loud. Meanwhile, his minions, guys like Josh Hawley and Ted Cruz and Ron Johnson, cosplay as noble statesmen and use lofty rhetoric to achieve the same corrupt goals.
We've seen in the last 2 months unprecedented allegations of voter fraud. And that's produced a deep, deep distrust of our democratic process across the country. I think we in Congress have an obligation to do something about that. We have an obligation to protect the integrity of the democratic system.
We are not acting to thwart the democratic process. We're acting to protect it. The fact of the matter is that we have an unsustainable state of affairs in this country where we have tens of millions of people that do not view this election result as legitimate.
Now when Republicans, 74 million Americans, have concerns about election integrity, we're supposed to just sit down and shut up? I mean, somebody has to stand up here. You've got 74 million Americans who feel disenfranchised, who feel like their vote doesn't matter.
Ted Cruz definitely been the lawyer representing the city in Salem v. Witches. We keep hearing there's no evidence that these girls are witches, but I say, why not throw them in the river so we can know for sure? Republicans think the election was rigged because you guys keep telling them it was rigged. These guys would yell echo into a canyon and then tell you that someone across the canyon is yelling echo. And now you want an investigation into whether the election was rigged because people believed you when you lied and said the election was rigged? Also, haven't we done this already? I mean, what was that weird adult puppet show with Rudy and Chardonnay Charlotte? You want us to hear more about this nonsense? Look, the local weirdo can take 5 minutes at a town meeting to talk about how he saw Bigfoot, but at some point he has to yield the floor so we can discuss potholes or, I don't know, pandemic. Also, stop with this bull about the 74 million Americans who feel disenfranchised. What about the 81 million Americans who voted for Biden who you're currently trying to disenfranchise? Maybe we need a committee to look into their concerns. Hey, we could even call witnesses. Maybe the Georgia Secretary of State or his lawyer could testify before Cruz's dumbass electoral commission. The committee now calls to the state Ryan, and I will ask the court to maintain their composure. Germany. Oh, no, Germany. No, that's a nice name. That's a very nice name. I don't think I've ever heard a name. No, Germany. I know somebody compliments his name. These guys tried to use lofty rhetoric to conceal what they were really. Raffensperger, Trump ripped off the mask and revealed what was really going on. He made it crystal clear exactly what those 140 GOP House members and a dozen senators will be supporting on Wednesday. They're not standing up for election integrity or trying to restore faith in our democracy. They're petty henchmen in a harebrained scheme to steal an election, hatched by a deranged wannabe tyrant who talks like a mafia boss with a head injury.
All I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have, because we won the state. You know what they did, and you're not reporting it. That's a criminal offense, and you can't let that happen. That's a big risk to you and to Ryan, your lawyer. That's a big risk. So what are we going to do here, folks? I only need 11,000 votes, fellas. I need 11,000 votes. Give me a break.
There's a real office vibe when you hear him saying, "You can't do that to Ryan." Not sweet Ryan. But seriously, it is about time someone gives this poor man a break. After everything he's accomplished, what have you done? He got into UPenn despite someone else jumping in and taking his SATs for him. Didn't get to fight for his country in Vietnam because either his right or left foot had bone spurs. It's private. You can't ask him. managed to succeed in business with nothing but his grit and $1 million loan from his father. The list goes on and on. That's definitely what you heard, is definitely the voice of a man who's been in debt before. He sounds like he's begging the waiter at a steakhouse to let him skate on the bill. Gary, please, you know I'm good for it. My wallet's just a little light right after I bet it all on the cataract comet. Bumped right into the wall. Man, you'd think he'd remember to turn left. I thought it was an ironic nickname. Like Cannibal Gary. He ate a guy. And aside from the begging and threats and cajoling, there were also the times when it was clear Trump was deeply immersed in the details of deranged conspiracy theories that you can only find on Facebook and Newsmax and in the darkest recesses of the right-wing internet. At one point, he kept asking nonsensically whether voting machines have been replaced, including what he called, and again, this is a very common tech term for people who know computers, the inner parts.
Do you think it's possible that they shredded ballots in Fulton County? Because that's what the rumor is. And also that Dominion took out machines. That Dominion is really moving fast to get rid of their machinery. Do you know anything about that? Because that's illegal.
This is Ryan, Germany. No, Dominion has not moved any machinery out of Fulton County. We're having
but if they moved, have they moved the inner parts of the machines and replaced them with other parts?
No.
You sure, Ryan?
I'm sure, Mr. President.
Shredded ballots, moving machines, new machine parts, he's just trying everything. 2 regular bullets, is that something that might work? There's no reason to think that would work, sir. Now, so I know Frankenstein hates fire, and Frankenstein and Wolfman are dear friends. Do we think fire might work? Ryan? No, sir. Look, Ryan. I'm the last guy who wants to bring this up, but do we think the werewolf might die if we gave it COVID? And then at another point, he repeated some deranged lie about military ballots. It was so off the rails, even his own aides and lawyers who were on the call went dead silent.
And what about that batch of military ballots that came in, and even though I won the military by a lot, it was 100% Trump. 100% Biden. Do you know about that? A large group of ballots came in, I think it was to Fulton County, and they just happened to be 100% for Trump, even though Trump won the military by a lot, a tremendous amount. But these ballots were 100% for Biden. And you know about that? A very substantial number came in, all for Biden. Does anybody know about it?
You guys, I think you might all be on mute. Can we check to make sure Ryan's not on mute? You guys? I was like getting high and telling an embarrassing story at a party. Like when someone mentions karaoke and then you say, oh yeah, I know what you mean. One time I got wasted and I tried to sing Baby Got Back, but then I vomited and slipped on my own vomit and split my pants and farted. We've all been there, right? Right? In the vomit. Farting. Debbie, you haven't? There were even times when Trump himself couldn't keep his lies straight. At one point, he seemed to exhaust himself and just drop the pretense.
They came in, a large batch came in, and it was, quote, 100% for Biden. And that is criminal. That's criminal. Okay, that's another criminal. That's another of the many criminal events. Many criminal events here. I don't know. Look, Brad, I have to find 12,000 votes, and I have them times a lot, and therefore I won the state.
I just like to imagine what everyone else was doing on the other end of the phone call while Trump was rambling like a lunatic for an hour. It's like when you put your grandpa on speakerphone while you do household chores, and then he just casually confesses to a crime in the middle. So anyways, the golf club got mad at me for not fixing my divots, so I complained to the manager and told him my arthritis has been acting up, and I can't find my hernia donut, so I killed your grandmother, and the AC isn't working. All right, I'm claiming that people had moved out of the state and illegally voted in Georgia, when our friend Germany explained that actually those people had moved out years ago, then legitimately moved back to Georgia and voted legally there. Trump dismissed that idea as ridiculous.
You have all these different people that voted, but they don't live in Georgia anymore.
We've been going through each of those as well, and those numbers that we got, that Ms. Mitchell was just saying, they're not accurate. Everyone we've been through are people that lived in Georgia, moved to a different state, but then moved back to Georgia legitimately. And in many cases...
Really? How many people do that? You mean they moved out and then they said, the hell with it, I'll move back in? It doesn't sound like a very normal... You mean they moved out, and what, they missed it so much that they wanted to move back in? Yeah, it's crazy.
Well,
There's that silver tongue again. You mean to tell me people actually miss Georgia? Georgia so much they move back voluntarily. They're burning backwater. I'd rather be dead than move to Georgia. And then if I was dead, I'd vote for Biden. Ryan, have you checked if dead people? Ryan, I'm just talking to you now, Ryan. This isn't for Brad. Ryan, I just need 11,700 votes. Ryan's on mute again. And it's important to note that Trump was not the only White House official on this call. His chief of staff, Mark Meadows, tried at one point to broker an agreement to let Trump's team look at data they were legally not allowed to have access to, despite the fact that they've lost about 60 court cases and that the votes in Georgia were certified after being recounted 3 times. And at one point, Meadows slyly tried to insinuate that everyone agreed they should investigate the president's conspiracy theories before Germany shot him down.
Mr. President, this is Mark. Let me just, it sounds like we've got 2 different sides agreeing that we can look at those areas, and I assume we can do that within the next 24 to 48 hours to go ahead and get that reconciled so that we can look at the 2 claims and making sure that we get the access to the Secretary of State's data to either validate or invalidate the claims that have been made. Is that correct?
So that's not what I said. I'm happy to sit down with, or have our lawyers sit down with Kurt and the lawyers on that side and explain to him, hey, here's, based on what we've looked at so far, here's how we know this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong.
He's like a teacher who doesn't want to talk to a parent about her son's math grades anymore. Look, I don't think he's an A student who needs to recognize his potential, but I'm happy to sit down with you to show you exactly how he is at fractions. Meadows, Hawley, Cruz, officials to the highest levels of the Republican Party are all complicit in this. And as for Trump, what he did here very much looks like a crime for which he should be both impeached and prosecuted. Raffensperger even suggested today that the Fulton County District Attorney wanted to investigate it. There's a Georgia state law against criminals and willfully attempts to deprive or defraud the residents of a state of a fair and impartially conducted election process. Look, I'm no lawyer, but that sounds exactly like what Trump did. It's almost like they wrote the law specifically with Trump in mind. Should we add anything about not being able to close an umbrella? Will that make it clear who we're talking about? Just because the GOP's attempt to steal this election isn't going to work this time doesn't mean it won't work in the future. Unless there are consequences, they're just going to keep going until they succeeded. Democrats need to remember that and do something about it now, even if Trump fades away, which I doubt. He's not alone. The Republican Party as a whole is a threat to democracy. That's the lesson here, and it's
a pretty big lesson.
This has been A Closer Look. God's Love We Deliver cooks and brings over 2 million meals a year to men, women, and children living with HIV, AIDS, cancer, and other serious illnesses, and they need your help now more than ever. If you're watching this online, you can hit the donate button, stay safe, wash your hands, wear a mask. We love you.